Oh yes, my peeps, welcome back to another episode of Arc 1 Welding. In today's video I have a simple pipe for you, but it's going to be full of a lot of informational tips and tricks. And some of these things you may already know, but I'm sure there's one or two things you'll be able to learn in this video. So let's get it started. This job I'm working on now is a 4.5 meter long 10-inch pipe with a 8-inch square branch coming out of it. Both of the pipes are standard weight. Now, it's seamless standard weight pipes. Usually I weld shed 20 pipe, which is about 6mm thick. This stuff here is what's classed as standard weight, which is 10mm thick. Also, people can confuse this for shed 40 pipe, but I believe that's a bit thicker. So that's the material I'm using. And as for the machine, I am using a Fronius TPS 400i. It's a pulse welding machine. So all of my caps and flanges and all my welds basically, apart from roots, are going to be welded using pulse. It's not your conventional pulse where it's got hertz and it alternates like an AC kind of frequency. It's constantly there the whole way, hundreds of times a second. Electricity pulses happen, and that gives you some nice clean welds with almost no spatter. And it also, the pulse allows the welds to solidify in weird positions, so you can do overhead with pulse. I'm going to be running 1mm solid core wire. This wire is copper free, meaning it doesn't have a copper coating on the outside, so it's a little bit more cleaner for your lungs, if there's such thing. The gas that I'm going to be using is an M24 mixture on the welding machine, but it's basically 12% CO2. And finally, the mask you see in the video is a Speed Glass G501. It's an air-fed respirator. So on my hips, you're going to see a respirator that blows fresh air into my mask. As always, the welding machine and my mask is linked into the description if you want to find out more information on them. Now, let's get into the video. So, I have started off by prepping my square branch. You see me use a template, which is basically a cheap piece of sanding paper that I can get from Screwfix. It has the right amount of flex as well as the right amount of rigidity to be able to be used over and over again. I make these templates by hand through trial and error of just winging it, guessing how to make the branch, and then just keep on shaping it until I get the right shape, and then I use that as a template because I do a lot of the same stuff over and over again. So making a template, as you can see how fast it was, I just traced around it and burnt it out. I also cut it out of a long length of pipe, so that allows me to get 2 square branches off of 1 length of pipe. As you see later on, the reveal of this pipe was filmed on a different pipe, exactly the same as this pipe here, just sockets in a different location, because I forgot to film this reveal when I finished this pipe. So yeah, 2 for the price of 1. The technique that I'm using to weld this square branch onto the pipe is basically I mark the outside, I burn it on the line. I make sure I use a chalk, and I angle the chalk so it goes into the prep of the pipe, so I can get the hole as tight as possible. It doesn't matter too much how you burn it, because I'm MIG welding. You pump so much metal in there that if your hole is too big or too small, as long as it's not too silly small, if it's too big you can just pump in metal and just blend everything nicely together. It's not so critical that your chop is perfect, because you can just fill it in. So I put the square branch on the pipe first. This way here, as long as I have the square branch sticking out in line with the pipe when I use the square, the axes on the side you don't need to worry about, because it's not leveling itself to anything. You're not trying to match your pipe to any existing flanges, so you basically can just make sure your gaps are nice gaps that are weldable. In my case, I had a small gap, and then I used a grinder to open that gap up to a weldable size. The bigger the gap, the longer it takes to weld, the smaller the gap, you don't get penetration. So all the work you've ever seen me do on this channel is all to class 2. I think class 2 is just a slang abbreviation to relaxed ways. It's not x-ray, it's not going to get tested. Well, it will get ultrasound tested, no destruction tested. It is all low quality work. It's for transporting cold water or medium temp hot water. So it's all low pressure as well, under 6 bar. It really isn't anything that is too specialized. So that's why the welding quality does not have to be perfect. It has to look the part, but it doesn't have to be welded to hold crazy high pressures. So I will do a root run, and then I will do my first cap at around 250 to 270 amps. I focus majority of my welding on the bottom. I try to get it to fuse nicely into the 10-inch pipe first, and then wash its way into the 8-inch branch. I can get away with 1 run, but personally, peace of mind, I like doing 2 runs. Because of the way how I do my first run, I have to stick the grinder in to make some space for the second run. It does 2 things. It, like I said, makes space for the weld to go in, so it's not so protruding, and it also grinds down the top of the weld. Because I'm focusing on the bottom of the weld, that comes out nicely, but for the top there could be some lack of fusion, some cavities, any issues, so I like to grind all of that out and give my second run a nice foundation to weld to, ensuring no issues. But bear in mind, if this was class 1 work, my technique and everything would be completely different, so bear that in mind. This is all just for class 2, getting it in there and making sure it doesn't leak and pass in the ultrasound testing. So the technique that I like to use to weld a square branch like this is, it's like a backhand slap type of technique. I've got the torch in my hand, in my right hand, and I'm welding from left to right, and I'm just doing a sweeping move all the way around as if you was going to give someone a backhand slap. And that way there, it allows you to rotate around more than half of the pipe comfortably. Because if you go from the right to the left, especially if you're right-handed, by the time you're trying to go to the furthest point from your body, you're having to lean over the pipe in order to get the rotation around the square branch, or you'd have to swap hands mid-weld. So that's the technique that I use, and I'm also trying to keep my torch square on, always facing the center of the square branch. I'm trying to be parallel to it and maintain the same angle all the way around. I don't drag, I don't push, I'm square onto it, and it gives me a beautiful weld once it's done. Now once the square branch is done, I can hang all 3 flanges on at the same time. These are PN16 slip-on flanges. Another thing to mention about my welding process is I am on price work. So that flange there you see, I get paid a certain amount to weld it. I get paid a certain amount to make that square branch. I get paid a certain amount for every individual different type of thing I do on this job. So my technique is solely based on speed. Speed is my #1 thing. Quality and speed, then I'll give you quality, because I do want to always have beautiful welds, but sometimes speed dictates the techniques and everything about what I do. I'm trying to make the most money every day, and I'm trying to evolve my techniques to the way that I can facilitate making the most amount of pipes. That's why I do the square branch on first, so I can put all 3 flanges on. One of the worst things you can do is double handle. Unless absolutely unavoidable, don't do anything twice or over again. Always break down your jobs and think about the fastest way to do things. Had that socket been on the same axes as the square branch, meaning when I was flanging it, the socket would have been poking out the top rather than opposite side to the square branch, I would have rotated the square branch in the right position so that when I've done all 3 flanges, I could have marked the socket, burnt the socket, tacked the socket on, possibly welded it there and then after I could flip the square branch 90 degrees in order to level it off there in the next axis. That's the sort of techniques that you need to do, to learn how to do to stay fast. Unfortunately, my socket was on the complete opposite end of the square branch, so even then, I just thought about a flaw that I done. So I put the flanges on, leveled off the flanges, flipped it 90 degrees, leveled it off again, and then I flipped it 180 degrees again after to put the socket on. What I should have done is, once the flanges were on, then I should have put it into the position where the square branch is facing down. I could have leveled it off that way there and put the socket on at the same time. Little small things like that, little subtle things, they are the techniques that people don't really tell you, but they separate you from an average pipe fitter and someone who really knows what they're doing. So the video is going to be wrapping up right now. All I have left to do is weld the flanges. So I'm going to do the inside and outside of the flanges at 270 amps. I'm going to be pushing on the inside. I find it gives it a much cleaner, smoother weld when you push opposed to drag, even though you can drag. The outside I will drag. Pushing it is really hard. You have to be almost on top of the pipe to be able to see where you're going if you try to push weld it. I hope this video is filled with knowledge for you lot, and it's at least entertaining, if not informative. I love doing these videos. I love just chatting and gossiping through the editing process and just sharing some of the knowledge that I have. I've been doing this so long, I know so much random bits of information about welding that it's really nice and fun to be able to just share it. I may not have got to everything in this video, but that's just the way my brain works. It goes out on random tangents. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment for any questions you want answered, subscribe for more videos like this. And with that being said, thanks for watching. Stay for the reveal at the end of this video, and I'll see you lot in the next one.